After a little over a year away, the world finally returned to Hawkins, Indiana this weekend, in some cases for the entire 7 hours 38 minutes runtime, which I'm sure is perfectly healthy. With the Demogorgon spectacularly defeated at the end of Season 1, Stranger Things 2 wastes no time in showing us that really we ain't seen shit from the Upside Down, and Will is still stuck between here and there. One of the most hotly anticipated slices of pop culture we've had in 2017, Stranger Things 2 could no longer rely on its understated charm and word-of-mouth marketing to see it through. Instead, the Duffers had to deliver something that not only built on the original, but upped the stakes to meet the hype. Did they do it? Well, in some ways yes, and in some ways no. So in typical Whatculture fashion, we're going to examine the Upside Down with the ups and downs. Nearly works, that. Also, I'm wearing a dress. Alright, first things first. The one thing we knew the second the trailers dropped was this was going to be a much higher budget, much slicker Stranger Things. And the worry I think we all had was this would ruin something about the show. And I'm pleased to report, it hasn't. Instead, what we got for our extra $2 million an episode is improved CGI, bigger set pieces, more elaborate stunts, but crucially, not at the cost of that small town charm or that quintessential magic or the unseen threat element. Overall, the improved look of the show is an up. One other issue the trailers raised is that of the new cast members and how they would fit into things, and the answer is a seamless up. We'll start with Sean Astin, who's not only here as a love interest to Joyce, but also pretty much as a direct homage to his role in the Goonies, because Stranger Things loves a reference. He's so charming and impossibly likeable, and such a good fit for the show that there are times when you mistakenly think that he's actually been there since the start, you just didn't notice. Paul Reiser and Brett Gelman also fit really nicely into their roles as the sketchy doctor and the conspiracy nut, but it's the arrivals of Billy and Max that really complete the whole picture. Billy's your atypical 80s American bully jock style and a much needed human antagonist for the show, and Max has got these wonderful rough edges that play so well with Dustin and Lucas. My first down is all about a character who isn't even here though, and the showrunner's ridiculously OTT attempts to correct the Barb issue from Season 1. Like, yes, it was bad writing to have her death so quickly glossed over, but in trying to correct that, they've gone way too far the other way. Look, an acknowledgement on the issue was needed and would have been sufficient, but instead what we get is Jonathan and Nancy taking a huge diversion and just retreading the same character boards they did in Season 1. It's nearly worth it as a setup for that "did you enjoy the pullout" gag, but on the whole, far too much fan service. So into the actual story now, and I think what we all loved about Stranger Things Season 1 was that at its heart it gave us a mystery that we could explore and pick at and examine and theorise about, and I'm delighted to report that they've managed to do that again, except this time it's bigger and better and grander and just slightly more engaging. As the marketing had teased, this was going to be all about the ominous shadow monster and spend a lot more time in the Upside Down, and it's been fantastic television to watch it all twist and unravel and reveal itself. I mean, yeah, maybe there's a bit of a slow start here, but once it gets into Will's decline, it doesn't let up for 5 minutes, and it's just really good. As mentioned before, the new effects work is really impressive, and it uses the monster, both seen and unseen, to create this really tense and spooky kind of environment for all the characters to be in. I mean, yes, it's horror, but it's not overtly horror. It just uses some of the genre's tropes. It uses them really well, and you get some genuinely really spooky and scary moments in it. Actually, now that I mention Will, his emergence as one of the cast is one of the best things about Stranger Things 2. You got to remember, he spent pretty much all of the last time just in the Upside Down. He was more of a plot point than a character, and we don't get to know him the way we did the rest of the gang. Noah Schnapp is given so much more to work with this time out, and bowl me over, he is terrific. At times he's got a genuine wide-eyed manic terror, and at others he's got this really quiet, unsettling intensity. Whichever way he's doing it, his performance is genuinely exceptional. Look, don't get me wrong, the cast as a whole are incredible. We knew that already, but as someone who had a lot to prove this time, his performance in isolation is incredible and deserves an up. But while I'm going to hone in on one actor's performance, it's actually the characterization across the board that remains the show's greatest attribute. Like, a lot of shows lean on their characterization as a crutch, but Stranger Things more soars off the back of it. Soars up, incidentally. Jim Hopper is exceptional, again, as too is Joyce, but the older kids themselves really emerge in this season. They make so much of Nancy being a badass finally. And in Steve, they've got this really likeable character now. Like, his interactions with Dustin are a really surprising pairing, but also one of their show's most enjoyable. Predictably though, it's the younger kids who shine the brightest. I've already touched on Will's performance, but in Lucas and Dustin, we again have two fantastic scene stealers. You can tell the producers are aware of this as well, because they put so many great moments into the 9-episode run for them both. Mike has a lot less to do this time out, but in the times he does get to shine, he really does. As for Millie Bobby Brown, what can you say? She's proved season 1 wasn't a fluke for her, and while her character gets pushed in all sorts of different directions this time out, not all of which work, it has to be said, she's consistently exceptional in the role. It's almost at the stage now where her emotional powers outstrip those of her telekinetic abilities, and that's really saying something. However, it is those directions which are something of a down. You see, it's impossible to talk about bigger, bolder, darker sequels without mentioning The Empire Strikes Back, and Stranger Things itself does reference Star Wars quite a lot, so bear with me here. If this is Star Wars though, then 11 is our Luke Skywalker, and like Luke, she has to go off and do her own thing during this season. However, that subplot feels completely at odds with the rest of the show and simply does not work. The 11-centric episode, episode 7, is already the most divisive element of Stranger Things 2 as a whole. I know some people do like it, but tonally it just completely doesn't fit with the rest of the show. It jars you out of the moment. It completely stalls the momentum they'd build up to that point. It's honestly one of the most frustrating things about the entire season. And before you call me any names for that, I did check with Twitter, so you know, it's not just me. What makes it even more frustrating is how well the Eleven and Hopper dynamic was working up until that part of the show. Like, easily the show's strongest dynamic between two characters. They explore both Eleven's burgeoning adolescence and her superpowers at the same time, and they do it with genuine emotional weight. I mean, there's laughs, there's tears, they come to blows. It's done so well that I honestly think it's strong enough to be a show in its own right. It's a massive up. In fact, I almost wish it had been its own show, I guess, because even though they only did 9 episodes, there's still quite a bit of fat in Stranger Things 2 that could have done with being trimmed. It's a small complaint, granted, but there are a few episodes that do feel like they run too long. The tightest ones, the best ones, all seem to be around the 45-minute mark, and the ones that just don't quite get the pacing right all creep up to about an hour. If they'd been a bit more ruthless in the cutting room, presuming they still have cutting rooms in editing, I'm presenting talent, then we might have got rid of that sluggish start, of the old character boards getting retread, maybe even got rid of episode 7 entirely. Look, it's just nice to be back in that world, I guess, and I could spend a few hours there just doing whatever, but from an objective standpoint of what makes good television, didn't quite flow right in part, and it's a very reluctant down. But you know I love to end with an up, so by God we're going to. For all the hype, for all the worry, for all the doubt, for all the issues, for all the examples of other shows never quite recapturing the magic of the first season, Stranger Things 2 has knocked it out of the fucking park. While it does build on the events of season 1, I mean, how could it not? It's far more concerned with telling its own story. I mean, the Barb stuff aside, it doesn't really worry too much about wrapping up any loose threads for you, and instead just focuses on bringing you a whole new adventure. It's taking something which is essentially already very good and making it great, and as sequels go, as the criteria for good sequels go, it's a huge success. But what did you think? Please give us your review of Stranger Things 2 below, and remember, friends don't lie. Why not like, share and subscribe while you're at it? It might even make you feel good. Actually, if you really like this, do let us know below, because there's all manner of fun little Stranger Things videos we can do over the course of the week if you really want them. Until then, I have been Adam Cleary of Whatculture.com, and I'll see you soon. Well, would you look at that? You got all the way to the end of the video, and your mother said you'd amount to nothing. What are the chances? While you're here, why not watch one of our other many, possibly quite good channels, or watch another video which will be largely in the same vein as the quality content you've just endured. Go on then.